brief introduction before we have our presenters and your discussion boards. So, the brief presentation, you're not going to be able to read my writing, but there it is. So, what do we have here? We have mind and we have body. We can talk about them and deal with them in two different ways, right? A lot of times you deal with a subject in different ways, and the way that you deal with it with one method, that method would not be appropriate to deal with it in another way, right? So you can imagine dealing with a person and they're having a problem. It could be that you need to deal with that problem by getting blood work done, and maybe they need some kind of medication, right? So that's one way of helping somebody with a problem. Let's say they're having mood swings or something. Right? That would make sense, wouldn't it? Okay, but maybe another way of helping with the problem would be to just keep your mouth shut and listen. Right? Sometimes people just need to know that their friend empathizes with them, cares for them, and is there to hear them out, to listen. Right? And, well, you get what I'm saying. So there's different approaches, both of which might be valid in their own time, in their own way, for their own purpose. But one approach maybe is really off. You know, like let's say somebody's choking on their meal at the dinner table. Right? They're in pain. They need help. So what if you just, hey, I'm here for you. I'm listening. I'm listening, man. You just express yourself. That's right. That's right. I'm hearing you. Okay, no, that's not what they need right now, right? They don't need the empathy. They don't need the ear. No, they need you to stand up, get around them, and do the Heimlich maneuver, right? So there's different approaches for different things. Okay, so too then with the philosophy of mind. Is it important to have cognitive science to understand what parts of the brain seems to have activity given different functions, right? So you can see if somebody's thinking logically, a part of the brain is firing. You can tell if somebody's in some deep meditative state, right? You could put them through a CTE scan, and they would be able to tell, yes, they are in this meditative state. They'll actually see it, right? Somebody is angry. Whatever. There are different, we know somebody's being artistic, they're actively creating art. We have different parts of the brain for doing different things, right? We're smelling, whatever it is. So there is the scientific approach for understanding the brain. And that's gotten quite advanced, but maybe not nearly as advanced as you think it has. If you think it's gotten to the point of explaining consciousness, right? To explain consciousness itself. You can imagine explaining artwork this way. If you were to explain the artwork chemically, giving a chemical analysis of all the paint chips, and how high they are off the canvas. Okay, that's a perfectly materialistic, valid way of knowing the painting, not as art, but as matter, right? But if you were to be given that explanation from somebody about a great piece of art, you might be interested in it as insofar as it goes, but you'd probably say you haven't even begun to discuss the aesthetic qualities of this painting with me. You're not talking art at all. You're talking science. Okay, but when you begin to talk about it as art, you can do that very well without ever mentioning anything about the molecules that the paint is made of, right? About the chemical structure of the paint, about how high it is off the canvas, where. You wouldn't even need to mention a thing that science would be good at explaining. in order for you to have an authentic conversation about the art. But in having that conversation about the art as art, in all likelihood, you'll be speaking in a way that you probably could just make fun of. Come on, what are you really saying? Quit using these general, vague, non-materialist terms about how it soothes you or moves you or you have a transcendent sense through meditating on it. For what are you, some kind of New Age guru or what? You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to talk about the art as art, chances are super good you're not talking about it at all as science. So too then with the philosophy of mind. You can talk about mind in its physical aspect regarding brain and do biology and do chemistry and even do physics and talk about the electricity. Science is fantastic for that, right? But that is akin to discussing the work of art by the chemical makeup of the paint on parts of the canvas. You haven't touched consciousness at all. And probably you don't think of consciousness as something that needs explaining or understanding because you're having it right now. Are you aware of yourself as a self? Are you aware right now of your feelings? Of ideas running through your mind? Of others? Okay, this is consciousness. We're conscious. Well, how are we going to explain it? We can explain it by identity. That is, we can identify consciousness with matter. All that there is matter. Right? That's it. Okay, well, let me ask you about my hat here then. What color is it? Crimson? That sounds right, doesn't it? I wonder how much this weighs. How much do you think this weighs? What does it feel like? Pascal, what does that feel like?
Kind of hard.
Yeah, a little bit hard. Is it a little fuzzy right here? Yeah? Uh-huh. So that makes total sense to talk about this hat in physical terms, does it not? Okay, well, one thing we know about consciousness is that it can be conscious of thoughts. It seems that thoughts are of the nature of consciousness. Okay, now let's do that same explanation regarding a thought, okay? So what thought do we want to have? What thought do we want to have here? What if I say, here's a simple rule of logic, if P is true, then Q is true, and it's not the case that Q is true, so it follows that it's not the case that P is true. So that's called modus tollens. That's true. I don't care what your language is. I don't care where you come from. Heck, it doesn't even matter what gender you identify as. None of it matters. That's true. Everywhere, all the time. Okay, well, let me ask you this then. What is its chemical makeup? Well, we could sniff the board, right? And we could do a little chemical analysis on the black that I wrote on the board. Could we not? Right? Well, then we'd understand the truth, right? Okay, the truth is black, because I used a black marker, right? And we could do a chemical analysis, and so then we're treating the truth physically, are we not?
Yeah.
Well, The problem is we're treating physically what I wrote on the board. But was this truth true before I wrote it on the board? Was it true before Aristotle cataloged it? Right? Yeah, this truth here, see this truth right here? Oh no, I just erased it! Don't erase it, it's the truth! No, what are we going to do? Did I just erase the truth? Huh?
No, it's going to stay.
Yeah, it's going to stay there. Where there?
In the mind.
In the mind, which is where? So maybe it's true in the mind. You know what? You're all fortunate because I haven't died. This truth is going to stay in my mind. So long as you can keep me alive, then you have the truth of modus tollens, right? Huh? You mean if I die, modus tollens still will be true? I'm offended. Yeah, it'll be doing just fine long after my death. Because as a matter of fact, it was doing just fine long before I was born. Maybe what? Is it true of your mind? Is it your mind that makes it true? Okay, no, it's no human's mind that upholds the truth, holds that truth in existence, right? So I could just as well say this, that truth, it's true nowhere at no time. It's not a physical thing. It's not physical. It's abstract. Well, if it's abstract and not physical, true everywhere all the time, just as well as saying true nowhere at no time, then what is this dimension we're talking about? You see, if we were to talk about any other thought in my mind about, like the way we talked about my hat, you'd be utterly nonsensical. Just try it in your next math class, okay? Excuse me, that theorem you just gave us, how much does it weigh? And what color is it? Because, I think it smells nice. You want to try that? That'd be kind of weird, wouldn't it? Yeah, that makes no sense. No, that kind of conversation of any physical attribute regarding a truth is utterly nonsensical. Okay, so maybe then we can't identify the mind and the ideas that the mind has with matter. Because the terms regarding matter seem not to be able to express it. All right, well, maybe we can still stick with identity, though. But then what if we identify mind? What if we do it the other way around? Rather than identifying mind as matter, perhaps involving us in this absurd talk about how much a truth or an idea weighs and what it smells like and what it looks like and all that. Okay, well, what if we still have the identity theory, but we switch it? So then we're going to say that it's actually the body that is of the nature of mind. So we see our body and we think of it as material, but actually it's the nature of mind. So we could have the identity theory yet. The mind is identical to the body. How could that be? How could it be that we are one, our consciousness, our mind, is one and identical to our body? Well, we tried the one way around to say the mind is identical to the body, so what if we switch it? The body is identical to the mind. Meaning the body reduces to the mind. Not that the mind reduces to the body, that would be saying the body is fundamental, and then you have to use physical language to describe thoughts, which seems nonsensical. So what if instead you say it's the body that reduces to the mind? So then the true nature of the body is mental. So we talked about this before a little bit when we talked a little bit about Buddhism, right? So is it true that For one thing, we can get rid of about 97% of what we call matter. Yeah, we have no clue what it is, so we call it dark matter, right? In other words, we don't have a clue. Why is it that planets hold the orbit that they do? What we know of atoms nowhere near accounts for the gravitation required for the planets to have the orbit that they do. So we're missing like 97%. So what do we call it? Might as well just call it what Locke called it, the I know not what. Well, instead we come up with the term dark matter, dark energy, right? Okay, so we're already saying we don't know what it is. And we keep looking and looking and looking for more and more of something to account for gravity as we know it. Well, maybe it's actually mental. So with what we know of the atom itself, is it mostly space, not substance or matter? Yeah, it is. And on top of that, it's always changing. So we haven't quite dismissed matter, because we still have protons and neutrons and all that. But wow, we've sure gotten rid of a ton of it from our initial conception of matter being hard and real, material, right? Can't quite dismiss all of it, but we've dismissed a ton of it. Perhaps, anyway, the nature of reality then is mental. So, we have a mind, we have a body, but they're just two ways of looking at the same thing because they're actually identical one to the other. So what is it fundamentally that it is that the mind reduces to, or that the body reduces to? The body reduces fundamentally to the mind. So everything actually is mental. But when we discuss our body and talk about it, it's just a way of talking about an aspect of our being. But our self reduces to the mental. Well, that's a possibility, but you're going to have to swallow then that you've dismissed all matter, right? And maybe you're not quite ready to do that, though. It's like, look, I got a computer in front of me, right? I'm clicking on it, and I really don't think I'm clicking on a mind. Or just an idea, because I seem to be able to make this distinction between mind and matter, which seems to be a perfectly conceptually coherent one. And hey, what you're engaged in is called reductionism. Saying that one thing that has a nature ultimately is completely reducible to something of a different nature. So that's a problem of reductionism. So maybe you're not ready to go with the identity theory, whether you boil everything down to matter or you boil everything down to mind. Okay, what's another option? Epiphenomenalism. Well, the problem here is, you've seen the science fiction movies where the computer takes over the world, right? Robots take over us. Artificial intelligence. Hey, they're taking over our jobs right now, are they not? Huh? See, they're already at work. So what's a good movie that shows this? I forget the name of it.
Terminator?
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Well, is it Blade Runner? Or no, Terminator. Yeah, that was the name of it. And the Matrix. Well, now in the Matrix, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Matrix. It was they were.
It was all simulation.
Yeah, everything was simulation, but in the Matrix, it was the aliens who were using people as battery juice, right? They weren't aliens, but were they machines?
They were machines.
Oh, they were machines. Okay, well that's perfect then. That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, that's the danger with this view now, is it might mean that we're going to be overtaken by aliens. We create the machines, but then we program them such that they can create their own machines, right? So, and this isn't sci-fi talk. This is real talk today, right? We create the robots, then we program the robots to be able to create their own robots. What are they going to come up with? Right? And then the robots, then they can control the grid. And what if the robots see us then as a threat to their well-being, and they've gone on to program themselves to look out for their well-being? What's going to happen to us, right? So the idea here is that if you have something of sufficient complexity, consciousness is an emergent property. Now what this view has going for it is you are not identifying consciousness with matter, which lands you in a very bizarre way of speaking about your thoughts, how much they weigh and the like. And it doesn't land you into the reductionism either, of reducing the physical to the mental. So you have this, so that you're able to talk about the mental in terms of mind. Just like you're able to talk about art as art. Which then is not to say that there isn't a physical aspect of it, which you could talk about the art, the physicality of the art. How much does that statue weigh? What are its dimensions? Yes, you can talk about the sculpture physically. It is a physical thing. So too, you can talk about yourself physically. Hey, do I need to have a, aren't the bones quite physical, You can have your shoulder go out on you and somebody can snap it back in place. It's like you're talking about working on a motorcycle, right? You know what I mean? Quite physical, is it not? So, the beauty of Epiphenomenalism is you can talk about the physical in terms of the physical. You can talk about the mental in terms of the mental. You are not involved in reductionism, either which way. So that's the power of it. Now, maybe what's hard to swallow, though, is this idea of, have you actually said anything intelligible? This might be cool for writing a sci-fi book. Wow. So first I started off with computers with the Bentley 8086. And it had 640K. Badass. You know what I'm talking about? Okay, well then, in college, I was one of the first ones. I was the first one in my department to bring a laptop into the classroom. And it was a 1300. I think, oh boy, I think the processor, I forget what it was exactly. I guess 1500. I guess that's why it was named that. Well then, there's the 286, and then that laptop, that was a 386. Whoa! But then my brother taught me and he got a 486, right? Wow. Okay, what came after the 486?
487?
Good guess.
That was the Pentium, so I think it started.
Oh, then it came into the Pentium.
Pentium 3.
Pentium 2, Pentium 3. Okay, so at which point here do you think, or has it not happened yet, or maybe it has? Maybe when you went from Pentium 2 to Pentium 3, especially if you upgraded it to a memory of 1 gig?
That would have been way too much back then.
Yeah, it would have been way too much back then, wouldn't it?
Maybe 8 meg, maybe
8 meg? 16 meg? Maybe that's right. I had an upgrade of, I think it was a 486, and I upgraded it to a 16 gig. No, RAM. It was RAM.
16 meg.
Yeah, 16 meg of RAM. Yeah, I upgraded it. Maybe when I gave it that upgrade, was it just starting to sense, hey man, you don't have any hair, do you? You think my computer had an attitude like that, showing disrespect?
Probably didn't have a camera. So
Yeah, that's true. It didn't even have eyes yet, right? Well, maybe it was thinking to itself, though, why does this guy type so slow? Why doesn't he take a typing tutorial and quit making these mistakes? Because I'm getting tired of this. Was my computer maybe thinking that way when I gave it the 16 meg RAM? Okay, well, you get the idea of what I'm saying here, right? I mean, at what point? Maybe now, though. I mean, heck, you can get your computer with at least a terabyte of ROM, right? And a whole lot faster, right? So maybe now, and it's got a camera on it, and it's got speakers on it. So maybe now it's to the point of saying, hey man, you're bald. What's up? My computer's got an attitude, you think? Huh. Okay, no, I don't think so. Okay, well, what about, you see where I'm going with this, right? Number one, now, but then again, just because something seems weird doesn't mean it's not true, right? But it certainly does seem weird to talk about where is the point that consciousness emerges. And then can you describe that process for us? Where the consciousness was just like a mist, just starting to form into like a little cloud, and just becoming this emergent property, it's called, hovering over the computer like a ghost. But only some people can see it, the ones with a sixth sense, right? Did you ever see The Sixth Sense where the kid could see, I talk to dead people, right? Okay, well maybe gifted kids like that who've got the sixth sense, they're going to come out with a movie now. A few years from now, when computers have gotten even faster, and then the kid's going to say, I see the spirit of computers. Right? Well, gosh, that's weird. But just because it's weird doesn't mean it's not true. Maybe consciousness is an emergent property, and epiphenomenalism is true. But apart from being weird, we still have this problem of how in the world could you possibly explain the emergence of one thing which is utterly different than the thing it emerged from. Okay, that leads us into the same problem of another theory we have called dualism. So the big problem of dualism, what is that? Okay, look, we're not going to deny the physical. We're not going to deny the mental, spiritual, consciousness, whatever. Yeah, so we're going to maintain both of them. But we're just going to accept the fact that we can't explain how they work. Oh, great. So you're telling me two natures that you have which have nothing in common because the one is physical and the other is not physical. And then you're telling me that they have effects one on the other. Right? Because I could start thinking some really mean thoughts right now, right? And it would start affecting my heart rate, literally. My thinking would affect my heart rate, right? Yeah, sure. If you're full of rage and hatred and anger, and you stay that way, yeah, that physically is bad for you, right? Physically, your heart, that's bad for your heart, literally, right? Let alone your mind. So we know that the mind can affect the body. Okay, what about the body affecting the mind? Yeah. Let's everybody try this, okay? I want you to stand up and I want you to go. Okay? Did you do that when you were a kid? And then your friend comes up behind you and pulls your belly in and you got this out-of-body experience. Just a natural high. You didn't do that when you were a kid?
No.
Okay, well maybe that explains a lot.
That's because a lot of them were kids and they had year 2 and 3.
Yes, I suppose so. Well, as even before that, I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't even have computers or cell phones or pagers or any of that shit. Right? What?
How was the wheel with the stick?
The wheel with the stick? Yeah, yes, I did that. The can with the stick? Yeah, we did that, and it does work. Yeah. I mean, only at so far of a distance, but don't knock it. Okay, well anyway, yes, you can see how you could do things to your body. I mean, what if you drank too much, right? Is that going to affect your mind? how you perceive, how you feel, right? Yeah. So the physical can affect the mental can affect the physical, but we're going to say that we believe in dualism, meaning that they both have their own distinct natures. Okay, well, just like epiphenomenalism then, it seems like, at least epiphenomenalism says that the spiritual emerges from the physical, even though it can offer no explanation at all. Well, here, though, you're not even saying that the one comes from the other. You're saying that these are two distinct natures, and it's always been that way. And then you just accept the fact that you can't explain it. Well, that seems like a big problem, that you can't explain it. But of course, we just watched a TED Talk with the guy who has resuscitated thousands of people from these near-death experiences. Well, actually, it would be more accurate to say death experiences, right? In every which way, they were dead. There was no measurable life whatsoever in them, right? And then they were resuscitated, even minutes later. So, and he says, as a matter of fact, yes, I'm a medical doctor. This does happen. That's not a question of if that happens, right? It does. So, and then, to even be able to explain consciousness itself, maybe the reason this is a problem is because we're so narcissistic. We think that reality is something that, if it's not comprehensible to us, then whatever you're saying about it can't be true. Because after all, I'm a genius. I'm brilliant. So, if I'm not able to comprehend something, well, then it's not true. Okay, well, maybe then my problem is just narcissism. How old is the universe? What is it, like 14 billion years? Right? Yeah. Does that number mean a stinking thing to you? Do you have any comprehension of that? I don't. It's just, you might as well just say it's, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious years old. You might as well just say that. I've got no comprehension of 14 billion. Okay, how about this? The universe began, in a split second. From something so tiny that exploded. And shot out. Okay, well, I got a shotgun, and I can imagine I shoot that. And, if I'm so far away, see how far the bullets spread, but the little BBs, but if I'm too far away, if I shoot it up in the sky, I know what's going to happen at an angle. It's going to go at this arc, and then they're going to start falling down, right? Yeah, but what are we saying about the universe now, though? It's constantly speeding up. You out of your frickin' mind? So there's this explosion, and then it keeps expanding, but not even at a constant rate, which I couldn't even make sense of. But no, accelerating constantly? What the heck? That makes no sense to me. That's wrong. That's got to be wrong. I need to be telling these physicists, I don't comprehend that. That makes no sense to me, so you're wrong. Okay, how about wave? It's a particle and it's a wave. Will you make up your mind, please? Which one it is? Because, your double talk here, I'm starting to think you're just full of it. Which way is it? Come on, make up your mind. Oh, it's both. Okay, I can't comprehend that. That makes no sense to me. So, you're wrong. Okay, you see where I'm going with this, right? We can be tempted to... I mean, that's why I gave you that little video about it's raining fish and salamanders and frogs, right? And I tell you that, and because of course then you're like, you're crazy, you're nuts, that's ridiculous. And then show you that, no, yeah, actually it does. And in that case, there's an explanation for it, right? The funnel sucks up the water, and then even miles later, dumps down the fish. So, or I brought up that example of 1997 in Phoenix, Arizona. People saw lights in the sky, multiple occasions. Many newscasters there. The governor himself. Thousands of witnesses, okay? So I'm going to be a little skeptical of the skepticism that says, hey, I'm tough-minded, and because that seems weird to me, it can't be true. I'm going to take my skepticism a little further and be skeptical of your skepticism. Before I'm going to swallow, all of Phoenix got together with all their media and said, hey, we want more tourists. Let's come up with this grand conspiracy. Well, it's possible, it's conceivable, but before I'm going to swallow that one, I think I'm ready to just land on this. I have no explanation for what these people saw or had. It's not a mass hallucination because their cameras picked it up. Okay, I don't know. Okay, I'm just gonna stop there. I don't know. But I'm not going to say that they're all liars or that they're all making this up and all of their video footage from all these news sources was all fake. I mean, unless I had some real good evidence, I'm not just going to buy that. I don't have that much faith, you know what I mean? So we can give lots of examples like this, where there are things that are so, or are the arguments to the best explanation, but which we cannot comprehend. All kinds of examples you can give of that, right? Both in the ordinary workaday life and in physics, right? Some infinities are bigger than others. Are you out of your mind? Now, to begin with, I can't even understand infinity anyway. And then you start talking to me about some infinities bigger than other infinities? What have you been drinking? You know what I mean? So just because we don't understand something, why then bring it back to consciousness then? Now, I'm not saying dualism is true or that it's the best argument. I'm just saying that the typical reason people blow dualism out of the water is, I don't understand it, I can't make sense of that. Okay, well that's a really bad argument. Because there's a lot of things we can't make sense of, and yet they're so. Maybe we'll make sense of it later, I don't know. Or maybe we won't be able to make sense of it later, right? Maybe there are things about reality which actually are beyond our ability to comprehend. I don't know. Well, what were we left here then with this physician who has had thousands of patients die on him? They even have operations like that, right, where they make that happen to where they have no brain activity. They've got to have no brain activity in order to operate on the brain. And yes, there's the real chance they will not be able to resuscitate the patient, that the patient will die. But they're going to die anyway if they don't do this to remove, I guess it's the aneurysm. So there's not any brain activity whatsoever, which means there's no heart activity, there's no breathing. And the body is down to room temperature, like 65 degrees. And the person stays like this over half an hour. And then, the operation is successful. They resuscitate the patient. And then the patient says what people in the room were talking about, who came and went. Yeah, they do. So just like this physicist on the TED Talk X, I forget his name. What was his name? Fleischman, Thomas Fleischman. So just like what he said is like, okay, no, this isn't a conspiracy theory here. No, this isn't a joke. No, this is not some way that I'm trying to drum up more business. This has been around like forever, where people have had no physical signs whatsoever of life, even under careful scrutiny. No signs. And yes, they are brought back. And yes, they report things that we have no idea whatsoever how they could be seeing what was going on. Because, in the case of this operation of the brain, their eyes are actually even shut. How they could be hearing anything, because, actually their ears were even had tools in them that were noisy. So how they even saw or heard anything to begin with, even if they weren't dead, we really wouldn't get it. But, when they're clinically dead for over half an hour, yes, this is a fact. And again, before I'm going to say they're all making this stuff up because they want to get on TED Talks because they want to be famous, well, you're going down a real conspiracy theory there, right? Maybe you need to be a little more skeptical of your skepticism before you just dismiss evidence on the grounds that it seems weird to you. Which is pretty shaky ground, right? Now, maybe the conspiracy theory is true, though. That's in the realm of possibility, isn't it? Conspiracy theories, it gets a bad rap, right? Conspiracy theory is, if you have somebody who just likes to always think the worst or always think people are out to get them, and, they're just like mentally unhealthy, and they're always coming up with these grandiose schemes as to why people are treating them the way that they're treating them, right? So, well, for example, on a messenger, I have a family member who deleted another family member from Messenger, from the group Messenger thing going around. Deleted them. Okay, and then a few days later, they were saying something really meaningful to somebody on the message board when they got put back onto Messenger, about some really serious thing. And then the same person gave a thumbs down on their comment. So now the person who experienced these two things, first they get deleted from Messenger. Okay, but then somebody else reinstalled them, right? Okay, then they say some really meaningful, comforting thing to somebody who's grieving. And then the same person, what do they do to that? They give it a thumbs down. Okay, so at this point, that person was ready to say, okay, I think something's going on. And that this person who deleted me off of Messenger and then gave me a thumbs down on a meaningful message I gave to comfort someone, I think something's going on with them. Wouldn't you have reason maybe to think that, right? Okay, but instead what we thought is, okay, wait a minute now. I know that person. There's no way I think that they deliberately deleted you off a Messenger and then gave you a thumbs down on your beautiful, meaningful post designed to encourage somebody. So tell you what, we're going to get on the phone, we're just going to call them. Get on the phone, hey, do you know that you deleted so-and-so off a Messenger? And then when we put them back on, you gave them a thumbs down on their beautiful sentiment that they expressed? It's like, no. Turns out, the person was 88 years old and didn't really know how to use Messenger. Okay? So, you got to be careful with conspiracy theories because you can attribute dark motives to people who are scheming behind your back, right? Okay, maybe you just have a problem with paranoia and you need to just quit being so negative, right? But other times you've heard, just because you think that somebody's watching you, doesn't mean that they're not. Right? Do you think that, okay, in the French Revolution, the Jacobins, right? When the Jacobins, do you think that they were planning the French Revolution as a conspiracy to overthrow the French government and get the guillotine out and hack a bunch of leaders' heads off? Gosh, that's a dark conspiracy. Where's your tin hat? Right? You're really paranoid, man. Right? No, actually, the Jacobins did plan that. Right? Okay, how many more examples do you want where people conspired? Okay, what's the big day where the guy was Guy Fawkes, right? Oh, yeah, right. He's got a bunch of dynamite under Parliament in London, and he's going to blow the whole building up the next day, because that's when all the Parliament's going to be there. Man, you are so negative. You know, that's really dark. Are you having a problem with paranoia? Because, you know, I know a good psychiatrist, and I think she can help. Right? No, actually, it was a conspiracy, right? So, what am I trying to say? Hey, even when you're thinking maybe it's a conspiracy, designed to make you think that something's true, could be that it is this conspiracy, and it's dark, hidden, secret, trying to trick you. Yeah, that is a possibility. So I'm not saying that it's not a possibility, right? Maybe that is what happened in 1997. Yeah, making people think that there are lights in the sky. I don't know, okay? I'm just trying to I'm saying that that's a possibility, but I'm not just going to swallow that one, though. Doesn't mean I'm not a conspiracy theorist, okay? All right. So anyway, how to explain this? All these people coming back to life and they were able to describe things. Who? I don't know. He didn't know. The other possibility, is it necessary for meaning, for purpose, for dignity, to have this idea of there being life after death? I mean, it could be, one way to take it is, if there's not life after death, and this is all that there is, and in the grand scheme of things, then we're just like nothing but a blip. Well, then, what does my life matter? And for that matter, what does your life matter? What does anybody's life matter? Well, maybe that's to make the mistake of finding something's worth in its quantity, right? So it could be it matters infinitely anyway, even if it's temporal, right? But anyway, for a lot of people, the idea is for life to have its infinite worth, such that no person's rights can be violated, it must be that they themselves then live forever. That this is not all that there is. Okay, maybe yes, maybe no. I'm throwing out possibilities for you, right? Well, Karl Marx said, though, that this is like the opiate of the people. If you're thinking along these lines, hey, this can't be all that there is. It must be that life goes on. Why? Well, Marx would say that's like that's a religious view. It's not a scientific one. And the reason that you're holding it is because it makes you feel good. It's your security blanket. Gosh, there's so much I'd like to get done that I'm not going to get done. But that's okay, I live forever. Well, I feel better now. So the problem that we have going on here is called psychologism. See, we're not interested in the psychological motivation for someone's view in philosophy. That's a mistake of psychologism. That could be interesting, if you're in a psychology class, right? What psychological reasons are there for people holding certain views that they do? That's interesting in its own right. Okay, but that's not philosophy. Philosophy is about, is it true or not? I don't really care, psychologically speaking, what motivated you toward the belief. So a lot of people take that for somebody's religious view, right? Hey, you're Hindu, guess what? Your parents were Hindu. Hey, you're Buddhist, well, guess what? Your parents are Buddhist. Hey, you're Muslim, guess what? Your parents are Muslim. Hey, you're Christian, guess what? Your parents were Christian. Okay. So maybe their upbringing from their parents and their society is what did bring them to the faith that they have. Okay, that could be interesting in studying sociology or psychology, but anyway, we're in a philosophy class. So what we're interested in is not, psychologically speaking, what directed you toward a belief. We're interested in the truth or the falsity of your belief. Because you can see we can turn the same belief around on the atheist. So we could play the same game Karl Marx played on religious people, we could play it on Karl Marx. If there's life after death, such that we go on forever, and then there's this being that created us that then we're accountable to, oh crap. Then what else is true? That there's angels, but then that there's demons? So you mean there's this possibility that when I die, I'm not done with it, I'm going to go on, and that maybe there's some kind of law of karma or some final judgment, which I'm going to be held accountable for the way that I lived my life, one way or the other? Crap. I think I'm going to take my opiate of the people and go play some more video games. Go watch some more Netflix. Go to another football game. Have more sex. Join the hookup culture. Sign up with Tinder. I mean, we're a sex-crazed culture, are we not? So maybe that's their opiate. Okay, again, well then Karl Marx could say the same thing to me. Okay, Dan, you know what? Maybe the reason that I gave into my atheism was because of my fear of eternal life and perhaps eternal damnation. Because my dad was a religious person, and that really scared me as a kid. And so I took my atheism as my security blanket to protect me from scary thoughts like my being eternal. See what I mean? This thing of psychologism, it's not philosophy. We're wanting to ask, is it true or not that we do not exist after death? Is it true or not? What are the reasons for? What are the reasons against? What are the possibilities? Little conceptual clarity here. What do we mean by matter? What do we mean by mind? Well, philosophy is good for that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean we're going to prove it. Or it could mean you do prove it, but just because you prove it doesn't mean somebody's going to accept it. You could prove something very well, and yet lots of people, they're not going to accept it, right? I mean, yeah, what if you were to show people that, hey, you know what, actually you do have this kind of unfair, judgmental, racist-like attitude toward people who are different than you? Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh, I see what you're saying, and you've shown me that it's true. Wow, I'm going to change. Is that necessarily going to happen? No. Might be that they decide to go on with their prejudicial thinking, even though their thinking doesn't make sense, and you showed them that it doesn't make sense, and your argument is a good one, doesn't mean they're going to accept it. Right? So there are mental states and psychological reasons, personal priorities, which can keep somebody from feeling the sound weight of the opponent's argument. So just because you show something to be true doesn't mean that people are going to believe it. All right. We have presentations to do.